Hey guys, this will be our last part of our notes for the tsunami. Our test will be next time. Keep your review guides out. You can use those as you're going through, and hopefully you pick up something that'll help you on the test. Adios.
All right, we'll try to go through these notes as fast as possible to give us a little bit of an idea. So most of the tsunamis, they can occur from landslides, things like that, but most of them are due to fault movements on the sea floor. The movement has to be a vertical movement, can't be a horizontal movement. And once again, it's because the seafloor either goes up or it goes down. And in doing so, it creates a tsunami. Now, smaller than 7.5 will create tsunamis, but just not enough that can be felt on land or that can cause any damage. Okay. Now, there are some warning signs for tsunamis. The first thing is, do you feel the actual earthquake occurring? If you feel any earthquake and you're by the beach, good idea maybe to go away from the beach. A big one there is that sea level draws back in. Okay, we hear a lot of times that happens. We mentioned that several times. You can actually hear the wave. It kind of sounds like a roaring effect. Okay, any of those things happen, you seek high ground immediately. Go upstairs if it's a well-established building, and then there are actual warning systems in place as well that can detect whether or not a tsunami is occurring. For the test, there will be a matching section based on the different events. The first one happened that we're going to need to know in Alaska, April 1st, 1946. It was due to two earthquakes that happened along the Aleutian Islands. We talked about how violent of earthquakes are typically found there. What happened is, after the second earthquake hit, about 20 minutes later, a 30-meter tsunami hit parts of Alaska, and that was the first big wave. Once again, it took a lighthouse completely out. The speeds from this, they were clocked about 485 miles going across the Pacific. And when it got to Hilo, which is part of the Big Island on Hawaii, it's on the eastern portion of Hawaii on the Big Island. So if you think about the Hawaiian chains, it's that bottom one. And got to about 30, it hit the shore, and it happened killed 159 people. Now, what made this one interesting, it was on April 1st, which is April Fool's Day. So a lot of people thought it was an April Fool's joke and didn't think that the warnings were legit, even though there were warnings that were being issued. They all thought it was kind of a joke. All right, you can kind of see some pictures of some of the damage there. Once again, major event, caused a lot of death and damage. A lot of it could have been prevented. There was a lot of time it took there. It was just not about believing the warning. 1960, Chile, there was another earthquake, major earthquake, 9.5 at a subduction zone. Due to the subduction zone, you know you're going to have vertical movement. 3 waves, and as it happened, each one was a larger wave that hit the coast, killed about 1,000 Chileans. Hawaii still suffered. 61 people died, and 185 people killed in Japan. And once again, this major event could be determined or could be measured for for a week after the event. So major earthquake event caused a lot of death and destruction in the area. So here you can kind of see, let me get these out of here. You can kind of see where the waves hit and how many hours since the earthquake that occurred and how it traveled. So it did affect a lot of the whole Pacific. An event in Chile can affect everywhere. And then if you look at, this is actually in Chile, you can see the damage, and this is back in that Hilo on the Big Island in Hawaii. So major damage by this event caused by a large earthquake. 1964, once again, the idea that the first wave is always the worst, not always the case. In this case, it was the fifth was the worst. Once again, 122 people died, mainly due to the fact that in Alaska, where this hit along the Aleutian coast and other areas, it was not nearly as populated. And it did affect Vancouver and California, but not to the same extent. Plus, there was a pretty extensive warning system. Here you can kind of see that occurring where that happened. The Aleutian Trench is down there. You can see how all those different waves have affected the different areas where they kind of shot out from. The next one happened where a really good area would be to have an actual tsunami event. Okay, once again, it's along subduction zones. One of the best places in the United States for that is along the coast of Washington, Oregon, and up in Vancouver, that area. Not only that, but we said we need a nice channel. Imagine a tsunami wave coming down here would increase its waves, hit Seattle or Vancouver, cause some major damage. Once again, all you would need to have is a pretty major event. There has been events on this that have occurred that would have been significant to cause events. You can see the one from 1918. So the idea is that the next event, because of the heavily populated area that Seattle and Vancouver is, would have been would cause major fatalities and major damage to the United States. Even if it happened in Japan, you could have a major event that could trigger tsunami that reaches the West Coast. One that is not caused by an earthquake, that can be happened by others. This was in Krakatoa. What happened was there's volcanic eruptions, and as that occurred, there was a eruption that caused a collapse of the mountain. And as it did that, think about how Mount St. Helena kind of exploded. This is out in Indonesia, which is out in the land, created tsunamis that were 40-meter high, killed 36,000 people. And once again, not due to earthquakes, but this was simply caused by the volcanic eruption. So earthquakes are the most common, but they can be caused by just landslides and land entering in the water. Here you can kind of see that tsunamis can be formed when huge chunks of the island have kind of fallen in. Hawaii is what we call a hot spot, and you can kind of see it here. There's this land around the islands that have kind of slid into different parts, those slumping areas, and there's been a lot of avalanches underwater that have occurred. Those movements in those areas could create a tsunami that could be up to 30 meters high. So once again, this is caused by collapsing of land near the island, not necessarily from an earthquake at all. Could create a pretty powerful tsunami. Other examples in history of this occurring was the Canary Islands. Canary Islands are off the coast of Africa, way out here. They're believed to be a good candidate to cause major tsunami waves that could affect the eastern seaboard, specifically New York, D.C., those areas. And once again, they have done models that have kind of looked at that as a possibility. Could cause anywhere from 10 to 20 meter high tsunamis. And once again, these events happen about every 10,000 years. The last one was about 15,000 years ago. So the idea is that, we're kind of due for one. And one of these major collapses could cause devastation to areas that aren't typically prepared for it. Everything in here there's no earthquake, so the chances of a tsunami affecting these areas is very small, whereas, and it wouldn't be detected. And so there's a high possibility that not only could a tsunami happen from the collapse, but also it could cause major damage. Some other types of movement events that have been triggered by earthquakes in general, you can kind of see these down here. One happened in Newfoundland. That was due to a 7.2 in 1929, and Papua New Guinea in 1998. So kind of read over those, make sure you're able to, all these will be found in our matching section on the test. All the events I've actually listed will be on the matching, so make sure you are able to know those. You could also have them just in bays. What can end up happening is a very small event. An avalanche could create a large tsunami, or even just a earthquake could happen if it happens along the bays. Okay. In this case, in 1958, it sent waves inside the bay of 525 meters. Those are massive, massive waves you couldn't even imagine. And once again, a couple crews survived just for being out in the ocean, being dropped, but that's about it. Okay. Lake Tahoe, California. We'll show you in class a video of this one occurring. And once again, this idea is you wouldn't need a very large earthquake, but you could get one in a lake. Same concept as what happened in the ocean. You can see here from this diagram kind of the causes of of these waves, one of the things that's important to look at is notice how there's a vertical movement by the earthquake down here. The waves are moving all direction out in the open ocean, and very small waves. As you get bigger to land, they increase in size and will cause much more damage as it approaches shore. Thanks for paying attention so far. Since you have watched the video to this point, I'm going to go over some possible test questions here for the next couple of minutes. If you don't want to watch this, feel free to end the video now. All right, thanks for staying to the end of the video. A couple questions that will be on the test, guaranteed. Tsunamis reach greater height when they enter a harbor or a narrow space. True or false? Another question. The most common cause of tsunamis are A, volcano, B, earthquake, C, landslide, D, meteorites, E, Mr. Shreves. Last question that'll guarantee be on the test. If you were asked to label a map faults that could cause tsunamis, what type of faults would be most likely to cause a tsunami? Is it A, natural fault, B, right lateral fault, C, transform fault, D, left lateral fault, or E, all the faults could cause tsunamis? I'm talking about a big type of tsunami. If you mark E, you'd be wrong in that case. Good luck in the test. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask.